September 11th was not the first terrorist attack on American soil that claimed a lot of victims, as we will see in these unsolved cases of terrorism. Number 3. The Wall Street bombing of 1920. The Wall Street bombing occurred at 12:01 p.m. on Thursday, September 16, 1920, in Manhattan's financial district, New York City. The blast killed 30 people immediately, and another 10 died later of wounds sustained in the blast. There were 143 seriously injured, and the total number of injured was in the hundreds. At noon, a horse-drawn wagon passed by lunchtime crowds on Wall Street and stopped across the street from the headquarters of the Morgan Bank, on the financial district's busiest corner. Inside the wagon, 100 pounds of dynamite with 500 pounds of heavy, iron weights exploded in a timer-set detonation, sending the weights tearing through the air. The horse and wagon were blasted into small fragments, but the driver was believed to have left the vehicle and escaped. The 40 fatalities were mostly young people who worked as messengers, stenographers, clerks, and brokers. Many of the wounded suffered severe injuries. The bomb caused more than $2 million in property damage and destroyed most of the interior spaces of the Morgan building. Within 1 minute of the explosion, the president of the New York Stock Exchange suspended trading to prevent a panic. The New York District Attorney noted that the timing, location, and method of delivery all pointed to Wall Street and the Morgan Bank as the targets of the bomb, suggesting in turn that it was planted by radical opponents of capitalism, such as anarchists, communists, or militant socialists. Investigators soon focused on radical groups opposed to American financial and governmental institutions and known to use bombs as a means of violent reprisal. They observed that the Wall Street bomb was packed with heavy sash weights designed to act as shrapnel, then detonated on the street to increase casualties among financial workers and institutions during the busy lunch hour. The investigation stalled when none of the victims turned out to be the driver of the wagon. The FBI and local police investigated the case for over 3 years without success. Later discoveries helped discard the participation of the Communist Party, the Union of Russian Workers, and other radical organizations aligned with the Soviet Union. Then, suspicions fell over the Galleanists, an organization of violent Italian anarchists. Some historians believe that Mario Buda, one of the most radical Galleanists, was responsible for making and setting the bomb. But without any evidence, the case remains unsolved after more than 100 years. Number 2. The Chicago Tylenol murders. The Chicago Tylenol murders were a series of poisoning deaths resulting from drug tampering in the Chicago metropolitan area in 1982. The victims had all taken Tylenol branded acetaminophen capsules that had been laced with cyanide. A total of 7 people died in the original poisonings, with several more deaths in subsequent copycat crimes. On September 29, 1982, Mary Kellerman, 12 years old, died after taking a capsule of extra-strength Tylenol. Adam Janis of Arlington Heights died in the hospital later that day after ingesting Tylenol. His brother Stanley and sister-in-law Teresa, 19, of Lisle, later also died after taking Tylenol from the same bottle. Within the next few days, Mary McFarland of Elmhurst, Paula Prince of Chicago, and Mary Reiner of Winfield all died in similar incidents. Once it was realized that all these people had recently taken Tylenol, tests were quickly carried out, which soon revealed cyanide present in the capsules. Warnings were then issued via the media and patrols using loudspeakers, warning residents throughout the Chicago metropolitan area to discontinue the use of Tylenol products. During the initial investigations, a man named James William Lewis was accused of sending a letter to Johnson & Johnson demanding $1 million to stop the cyanide-induced murders. Lewis was arrested, tried, convicted of extortion, and sentenced to 10 years in prison. As recent as 2010, no evidence has been found that proves Lewis was behind the poisonings. The case remains unsolved to this day. Number 1. The Anthrax Attacks. The 2001 Anthrax Attacks occurred in the United States over several weeks beginning on September 18, 2001, 1 week after the September 11 terrorist attacks. Letters containing anthrax spores were mailed to several news media offices and Democratic Senators Tom Dashley and Patrick Leahy, killing 5 people and infecting 17 others. The anthrax attacks came in 2 waves. The first set of anthrax letters had a Trenton, New Jersey, postmark dated September 18, 2001. 5 letters are believed to have been mailed at this time to ABC News, CBS News, NBC News, and the New York Post, all located in New York City, and to the National Enquirer in Boca Raton, Florida. Robert Stevens, who worked there, died on October 5, 2001, 4 days after entering a Florida hospital with an undiagnosed illness. 2 more anthrax letters, bearing the same Trenton postmark, were dated October 9, 3 weeks after the first mailing. The letters were addressed to 2 Democratic senators, Tom Dashley of South Dakota and Patrick Leahy of Vermont. At the time, Dashley was the Senate Majority Leader and Leahy was head of the Senate Judiciary Committee. The Dashley letter was opened by an aide, Grant Leslie, on October 15, and the government mail service was shut down. The unopened Leahy letter was discovered in an impounded mail bag on November 16. It was misdirected to Sterling, Virginia because a zip code was misread. A postal worker there, David Hose, contracted anthrax. More potent than the first anthrax letters, the material in the Senate letters was a highly refined dry powder consisting of about 1 gram of nearly pure spores. At least 22 people developed anthrax infections. 5 died. Authorities traveled to 6 continents, interviewed over 9,000 people, conducted 67 searches, and issued over 6,000 subpoenas. Bruce E. Ivins had worked for 18 years at the government's biodefense labs at Fort Detrick and was a top biodefense researcher. He had committed suicide at the age of 62. It was widely reported that the FBI was about to press charges against him, but the evidence was largely circumstantial and the grand jury in Washington reported that it was not ready to issue an indictment. Federal prosecutors declared Ivins the sole culprit on August 6, 2008, based on DNA evidence leading to an anthrax vial in his lab, and the FBI formally closed the case. But the American Academy of Science made a report on the case, addressing that there was not enough scientific evidence to prove the anthrax originated from the Ivins laboratory. So, what do you think? Put your comments below and subscribe.